What is happening, people? I hope you're well. Not, the game I wanted to be discussing, if I'm honest with you. Brighton have beaten Tottenham in a rather unexpected manner. But, to get me through this, I'm joined by a fantastic panel. Firstly, Kallum, welcome back on. How you doing?
You seem to keep bringing me on these ones where we lose. It's either that or you relegate me to a Wednesday, mate. So, I think you owe me a good one on this. But no, I'm good, mate. I just wish it was better than talking about the same game yesterday, as I've already done it the last 24 hours. I feel like crying every time I do.
Yeah, that's what just want to put you through pain. That's all it is. But no, thank you very much for coming on this evening. You've been promoted from Wednesday to Monday. So thank you very much for coming on the show. So there we go. Making his debut on the Spurs podcast, got Vas. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, Harry. Thanks for having me on, mate. Pleasure to be with everyone in these glorious moments following a shocking defeat. But there you are.
Yeah, there we are. Sorry to bring you on with such a weird circumstance, if you like, in terms of it's not.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll blame Kallum, actually, given that he keeps coming on after we lose. You've got to stop having him on. I think that's the problem.
That's what I do. Good idea. Let's all go with that.
Oh, Vass, I was going to ask you to go on Tottenham. Now you're going to make me cry even more. Jesus, mate, come on.
Sorry, mate.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Jim, thank you very much for coming on. It's always great to have you on. So, how you been doing?
I'm doing fine. Yeah. I'm kind of over it. I'll be all right. Decided I'll be okay. Yeah. And thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure.
No, it is always great to have you on. So thank you very much. We're going to all pull for it together. Justin, are you going to pull for it? How you doing? Also,
I just wish that when you asked me, could I do this one, I just had said no. I was doing my hair or just something. But no, I'm here, and whether I like it or not, as Tottenham's put me through it for ridiculous amount of years, let's crack on.
Yeah, let's crack on. Before we do, massive shout out to our sponsors and partners, the Kitman, where you can find former player memorabilia, and you can use the coupon SCARFY15 for a 15% discount. Any questions about that in the chat, just let me know, and we can sort it out to get you a better deal. But we'll move on to the game itself. Kallum, I'll start with you. Any surprises thinking back before the game? I always find it hard, this question, in particular when you get an eventful game like Brighton. But what were your thoughts on the lineup? Was there any surprises in there for you? You saw Werner start on the left with Son being out, Doggy come back into that starting 11 after picking up a knock at Old Trafford. Anything that took you by surprise?
Not particularly. I think that Ange thought we had a winning lineup there after the game against United. I maybe thought Moore may have got a chance, but probably too early. But I'll always advocate for him over. Well, I'd advocate for a bag of dog shit over Timo Werner. Let's put it that way. So it'd be one of them for it. But no, to be honest, mate, it didn't have really any surprises for me. The options were very limited on that left-hand side, to be honest. So Werner, within reasons, probably our most senior pro available, though I do question how he has that tag, to be honest. But no, I kind of had high hopes for the game after the lineup that was put out. But obviously we will cover that later on with how it ended up.
Yeah, we will. Thank you for breaking the swearing rule in your first question, Kallum. You've done really well tonight. Good start. But I think that
I'll see you Wednesday. I'm off.
Yeah, you're going to be relegated even quicker than usual today. I think I'll forgive you based on the manner of yesterday. But we'll move on.
Thank you, sir.
Might need to do a little count though for you. Vas, what were your thoughts on the lineup pre-match? Anything you would have done differently at the time?
No, not really. I think after the pretty good performance against Man United the week before, it was understandable to go with pretty much the same lineup. And I know there's been conversation about Mikey Moore starting on the left in place of Timo Werner, but to be honest, he just played 90-odd minutes in Hungary on the Thursday before, so I didn't really expect him to start over Timo Werner. So as far as the lineup goes, I was more than happy with that starting 11.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, Bass. I completely agree. And as Kallum said as well, I felt encouraged by the lineup we saw. We will get into obviously what happened in the game, but I was more encouraged as well by the start. But Jim, any surprises in there for you? I mean, guys that mentioned the Timo Werner, Mikey Moore situation. I mean, he was never really going to start, was he, Moore? As Vass said there, he played 90 minutes in the week. And Werner started against Man United. It was always going to be Timo Werner, whether we liked it or not, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I think even ahead of that option would have been changing back to one of our previous formations, playing 1-10 and playing Kulusevski on the wing. Was if we were going to see any change, that would have probably been it. And I think we saw a glimpse of that, didn't we, when in the second half where we moved to that. And after 10 minutes of trying, we kind of swiftly went back to 2-10s again. So, yeah, no, not surprised. I'm sure Mikey's got a debut in him at some point this season, but I just don't see it being an away game in the Premier League.
No,
So, yeah,
always risky.
That lineup. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm with you. I think there's no surprises in there. Justin, what were your thoughts on the lineup when it was released? Any frustrations in there?
Yeah, I mean, again, there's no point going back over the Werner Moore situation. I do agree with what everyone has said. As much we'd probably wanted more, we knew it was going to go with Werner. He made it sort of very clear in relation to that. But when you look at the lineup that he had, it was pretty much full strength, and based on the first 45 minutes, it looked like that proved to be the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we will go into the game itself. And 23rd minute, we got the first goal of the game, which came to us. It was Johnson with the goal, 6 in 6 for him. So, Jim, I'll come back to you. Firstly, Johnson's on fire, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's definitely found. When we say on fire, I think he's perfected the role Ange wants for him in our system. And I'm really, really happy for him because he is excellent at what he does. And he really, really fits how we play under Ange. I'm not sure if you dropped him in the similar way. I'm not saying this is not a dig at Johnson because I feel like he's doing everything he's been asked to do. But I feel in the similar way that I'd say, Phil Foden wouldn't be the same player if you put him in West Ham as he is playing for Manchester City. I think we've found a way of playing Johnson that perfectly fits his strengths, and he's doing really well at it. And I'm so glad. I mean, I can't think. I need someone to crunch the numbers and look up, but I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone in Europe's top 5 leagues who's scored 6 games in a row. So you can't do that purely on luck. Mm. So I think there's definitely a time where we've got to say, maybe a lot of us did have those moments of, I may not necessarily rate him, but I'm going to back him because he plays for our club and he's got a great work ethic and he's a good guy. Now I'm thinking maybe he is also really good as well, on top of being a good guy who works really hard and deserves our backing. So really happy for Johnson. Hope he continues to progress. What's excited me most is I'm finally liking to see him take on his man. And it always felt like he was running with just a little bit of a break on, but now it feels like he's just fully out the blocks, giving it, a full sprint in a game and taking on players, which has been really nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree with you. Vass, I mean, that's the perfect start to the game, isn't it? And it's also, we saw some good footwork in there by James Maddison. So, nice goal, wasn't it, in the end?
Yeah, it was. It was. In fact, Johnson was unlucky not to score in the first 90 seconds because Timo Werner down the left had a great opportunity to slide him in, and it would have been an even better start had the pass been made. But no, it was great move. It was Solanke played a part, I think, Maddison, and he just slotted it in. That's the second goal he's scored with his left foot now after Thursday night. So he's adapting himself a little bit and not becoming this sort of one-trick pony where everything slides in from his right foot into the far corner. But really pleased for him. 6 in 6 is a great achievement. And quite right, yeah, it was the perfect start for us.
Yeah, it certainly was exactly what we were looking for. Kallum, what do you make of that goal? As I said to Vass, it is the start of the game we wanted. Not an electric start, in terms of we've seen, earlier goals us were involved in, both for and against. But it did come in the 23rd minute, and I think it's really important in this game to get the first goal, keep the crowd quiet. But Brennan Johnson, I did mention earlier, I mean, we talk about this a lot, but he still is on fire, 6 in 6. Can he keep this going?
I would hope so. I mean, when you look at the goals that he scored, they seem to be getting more and more creative as you go along. So he seems to be definitely showing different aspects to his game. I mean, I think I messaged the guys on Park Lane yesterday where I was saying that him and Solanke are forming a really good partnership at the moment. There seems to be that sort of Son Kane-esque way about them. I know it's early days, but when the opportunities that his conversion rate is pretty much 1 in 3, I think it is at the moment, with the amount of shots that he's getting on target, which isn't a bad return for a young forward. So no, I thought it was really good. I just think he could have pretty much had a hat trick within that first half if Werner had squared it properly and not played it to the grass instead of the man. And I think Johnson skied one over the bar as well in the first half. So it was definitely his day to do something, and I think he's definitely been making the input that we want from our wingers, and he seems to be a lot more effective there than Kulusevski has been for a while, to be honest.
Definitely, and I think a lot of players, if not all, rely on confidence, but some more than others. I think Johnson, that confidence when he got the first goal, fans sung his name, and then he's really, for me, kicked on from there, and I think that's absolutely great to see. Whether you wanted him at the club, whether you think we overpaid for him, I think you have to separate that between supporting your players on the pitch, which I think the fans have done generally more recently, and he's seeing confidence for it. We're seeing goals. That's what we want. And hopefully getting more points. Maybe not in this case, but going forward. Justin, I want to move on to the second goal in the 37th minute, again scored by Tottenham to get a nice, healthy 2-0 lead before the break. It was Maddison with the goal. This is poor goalkeeping, though, isn't it? More than anything. Do you think, from a Brighton point of view, Fabian Hertzler, they're going to be frustrated with the manner that they conceded?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the play leading into it was good and everything else like that. And okay, Werner gets an assist, but it's a pretty slam dunk. That is one that any goalkeeper, of a top quality would want to save. And you would think that, and you could see by his reaction that it was clear that he was disappointed within it, because he'd put the club in a position where, in theory, the second half was going to be difficult. But obviously, he didn't realise Dr. Tottenham had other ideas. So, you sort of look at it and, you can the link up play and everything else. The shot, though, was pretty weak, and maybe that's what made him make the error. He wasn't expecting it to be a poor shot. So, but you see by his reaction, you see by the else's. It was a poor goal to give away, and in theory, it should have put Tottenham in a commanding position. But we'll get on to otherwise in a moment.
Yeah, we certainly will. But you've seen some interesting goalkeeping moments this weekend. We saw Friday night Ilya Melier with Leeds. I mean, I haven't seen anything quite that extreme, letting it in his own goal completely slip through his arms to give Sunderland a point, Leeds to drop 2 points and completely flip at the table, Sunderland go top. We've seen some excellent goalkeeping from Matt Sells, Robert Sanchez in particular, in that Villa, in that game, I thought, between Chelsea and Nottingham Forest, which ended 1-1. They both worked really hard defence. In particular, Sells was some good saves, and then we saw that mistake there from the Brighton goalkeeper. But that second goal, it did come at a good time, didn't it? A few minutes before half time, for me, I was just thinking, I don't know about you, but before that, let's get the second goal. We've done it. So at this moment in time, how are you feeling? Were you feeling confident?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I cheered more for the second goal than I did the first goal, because that's how important the second goals tend to be. And it gave us that lovely cushion that our play deserved. And if we'd have gone in at half time about 4-0 up, it wouldn't have been unwarranted, because, as the fellas have already said, Johnson probably could have walked off with a hat-trick on his own. We had one goal disallowed for a marginal offside, and we'd really been totally dominant for that first half. Our link-up play through midfield and from wide areas was excellent. So, once that second goal went in, clearly, as most Spurs fans probably felt at the time, we were thinking, like, well, if this continues, this could be another day similar to the one we had at Old Trafford.
No, absolutely. Jim, he went at half time, 2-0 Spurs. That's how it kind of stayed. it was a really positive first half, wasn't it? A lot went right. I mean, we come into this 5 wins in all competitions, but a lot of fans are kind of going, Brighton will be a big test. Man United not in a great place. Brentford expected to win. In Europe, exactly the same. And, not sure about the performances. So it was a big game coming into this. And we delivered, didn't we, in that first 45 minutes?
Yeah, we did in the first 45. And I think it kind of matches up with where I see we are at the moment as a club and how we've kind of moved on from last season. Because I look at the games, Newcastle away, Man United away, obviously Brighton away. And I think what we all wanted was to see us finally figuring out a way of winning those games, because they're typically games that we find a way of, losing. And those are the ones that would often be the difference between coming in the top 3 versus knocking on the door of the top 4. And we've seen improvements this year. But I think what's frustrating is that even though we've done better in all those games on paper in terms of performance, we still haven't quite seen them over the line. So it shows to me that we've gotten a little bit better, but not as good as we'd hoped to be by now. Because I think we just naturally have those high expectations, right? We've signed so many players. We had such a strong performance against Man United. Naturally, our expectations are a lot higher. But I still look at it as, 6 games of football, I think out of the 540 odd minutes, if someone's a teacher, tell me if I did that wrong. I'm a head just then. I still see about 500 good minutes of football and 40 minutes of bad football. It's just so unfortunate with us that we can find a way in 40 minutes of bad football of conceding so many goals in that short period of time, where other teams are a bit less susceptible to conceding that volume of goals in that short amount of time of playing poorly. But really good first half. Look, there's positives I take away from that game big time. I find football seasons are like watching a marathon, but breaking it down in 10-minute chunks and stopping at the end of each day to hyperanalyze those 10 minutes. You kind of need to look at it over a whole season.
That's a really good way of looking at it. And, if we could all look at it like that, then, maybe the concept of podcast wouldn't exist to kind of dissect the game, offer a therapy session. But no, I do really like that, actually. It's a really positive way of looking like it. So definitely take a leaf out of your book. But Kallum, that first half, what were your thoughts on it? I mean, it was total dominance from us. Could we have taken more chances? Should we have been more than 2-0 up at half time? We did get a couple of warning signs, though, defensively. Welbeck had a chance in particular where he's unmarked and stabbed just wide.
I think definitely it comes down to the clinicalness of our forwards again within reason. There was definitely chances that we probably should have gone maybe at least one more goal up. I mean, you'd think 2 goals is a nice safety cushion and you don't think a turnaround can happen. Well, we saw in the week with United going 2-0 up against Porto, then going 3-2 down, and then United obviously coming back and drawing it right at the death. But no, definitely the warning signs were there. But I thought the warning signs were there last weekend against Old Trafford as well. There was still some shots in that first half where realistically we could have conceded. And with the way that we all know Spurs are, we have an entertaining brand of football. But if there's a moment that we concede, it's going to be down to our own mistakes, and you could definitely see that was sort of eking in more towards half time as looking like we'd job done again, and forgetting that a game of football's 90 minutes plus a half time, not 45 minutes and then you're back on the bus sort of thing. So I did hesitate a little bit when it came to half time, but I was probably like most other fans. I was sitting there thinking, yep, 2-0 up, here we go, we'll go again, we'll hit them for 6 or something like that. We'll get a cricket score for it. Instead, obviously, we know that my halftime analysis would have been literally screwed up within a couple of minutes, to be honest.
It would have been, absolutely. It would have been in the bin rather quickly. Justin, focusing on more positives in that first half before we get on to the second half, which I'm ever so slightly delaying here. What were the positives in that first half for you, personnel-wise? For me, I looked at Kulusevski and thought his movement was very good. Solanke, involved in both goals. Do you think, the sign of Solanke, looking back on it, is definitely the right thing and could have a big impact for us this year?
It could. It certainly could. I think when you actually look at the impact he has made in a short period of time, I mean, obviously strikers will always get, sort of I suppose, compared to the goals that they actually score. But you look at his link up play and the presence that he gives, you know, okay, he didn't score, but he certainly creates an air of, you know, sort of that he's going to get in there, he's going to get into positions, he's going to drag defenders into positions that are going to make things awkward. So I'm not surprised that he has settled into this system. You know, I think when you look at what it has done, is by having him do that, it almost has given the likes of Johnson and Werner, Maddison and Kulusevski more sort of time on the ball, because they got to factor him in. You know, he is that striker who is going to stay up there and basically say, right, I'm going to sit here. You can't ignore me. You are going to be drawn to me because the ball's going to come to me. And it then gives them more freedom to look at other areas. So I think with what he has brought so far, you can really see how positive of an impact he is making. That, you know, and it's almost as if I think what we're going to see, hopefully going forward, once the likes of Richarlison is fit, you know, and Lankshire's up and running, is this level of competition. Because in theory, we should have three strikers who are all hungry and wanting to go out there and prove how good they are. So it's something we haven't had for a while, where we've had three competitive strikers that are out there desperate to score goals. So I think for him, it is he's made a good step into the system. But I think for Tottenham, as we saw in that first half in particular, you know, it has been a positive, and hopefully that will continue throughout the season.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. We'll now move on to the second half.
Do we have to? Can we not
I
just
know.
stop it there?
I know. I'm very sorry. It'll be a very short podcast, wouldn't it? 21 minutes. No, I'm afraid we can't. 48th minute. It's the Brighton goal. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I didn't even come back in the second half. I was actually on my way in, and I come to the door, and I heard, it's a goal, and I thought, oh yes, come on, 3-0 up, and then I come in and find no, it's not a Spurs goal. So 48th minute was Brighton who scored. Kallum, what do you make of it from a Spurs point of view? I mean, I want to know what Ange said to them at half time. Maybe he didn't say anything at all. Maybe they just let lasagna, as someone told me earlier. Maybe they just did. I don't know. But what's the doggy doing? I mean, it's unlike him. It's really rash defending. It's something to be, frustrated at any level to kind of see. So how can you kind of excuse that from a doggy? Can you understand what he's trying to do?
This is going to be interesting. Keep it PG, by the way, Kallum, before you start.
He's going to struggle.
It was just a culmination of errors, I think. It was definitely I want to say a mind something moment, but obviously I've got to PG it. So he had a brain fart, and I don't know what it was, because that brain fart was completely as if he was just standing on the touchline. If he was one of the stewards, it didn't even look like he was even there or thereabouts on the pitch. So I mean, I was the same as you. I was stood outside having a fag, and I just had the commentary going, and there was like, Brighton's made a sub at half time. I was thinking, okay, right, yeah, we go. Then I saw live score come up and go, 2-1. I thought, right, what's happened? Looked at it, and then I replayed it a couple of times. I was just trying to piece it all together, and within reason, it was just a moment of stupidity. And I understand he's a young fullback, and Berbatov actually came out and said something really interesting today, saying that Udogie needs to focus on his own defensive attributes instead of continuously focusing on going forward. And within reason, this goal sort of sums it up. It says, focus on defending, don't focus on going forward, don't look at the man. Well, you follow your man, you don't follow the ball. You make sure that you cover all your areas. And within reason, to be honest, it was just a moment of stupidity, which kind of underlined where we are as still a young team, and there's still these moments of mistakes with us. But you would hope that someone like Udogie, who's been playing for 5 years, just say as a top professional, they're not in there. But I think this summed up that he is still a young kid. He's only 21 or 22, and there's definitely a lot more aspects to his game, and that kind of links on to at half time. I don't think anything was said. I think they all thought job done. We can sit back and coast here, because the whole action that led to the goal looked like they hadn't even appeared from the changing room yet. There was no pressing. There was no positional awareness at all. It was just literally, right, we might as well make the game interesting. We'll let Brighton have something and we'll pull our pants down for them. And then they can have a little go. But it turns out that it just opened up and exposed the floodgates for us, to be honest, from there. And it was quite embarrassing when you look at the whole context of it altogether.
Yeah, no, certainly. We will get on to how it did kind of end up as a whole, but yeah, it was a good start to the half, was it, Vass? It's not the way we wanted it to kind of go, not the way that Ange would have wanted it to come on. What do you put that down to? I mean, we saw the mistake for a doggy. Is it solely on a doggy? Is it the fact that we come out of the block slow? Do you give credit to Brighton for coming out quickly and forcing that mistake almost from the pressure from the start?
Yeah, so Brighton had changed their tactics at half time. They dropped a little deeper. They changed the left back because he was getting roasted by Johnson and Kulusevski all first half. They started to press with more intensity. They even started to play a few longer passes to get the ball forward quicker. And I just don't think we were ready for it. I think we've got this problem as a club, and we've had it for years, where we think games are won when they're not. And I think there was a little bit of that. We just assumed that the same momentum that we carried into the half-time would continue after the second half without us having to try very hard. But you've got to play games as if the score's 0-0 all the time with the same intensity. Whether you're winning 2-0, 3-0, you've got to have that about you where the concentration is key. And listen, you're playing away from home. You'd think that the idea would be keep the home fans quiet, First, I know we've all heard it playing Sunday football, keep it tight for the first 5 or 10 and just, make them work for it. Don't give anything silly away. And we did the complete opposite because we didn't look ready. I mean, Udogie was rash with the clearance. Admittedly, it took a little deflection of Van der Ven on its way through. I don't know how much that bothered him or not, but it was a rash clearance and he was at fault for it. And the problems that Spurs have away from home at the moment is not that, you can't go away from home and dominate the whole game. It's not going to happen. The home team are going to have spells of pressure. Man United had a spell last week, but we rode it out well. Every team's going to have that spell. Even the first game against Leicester, we were all over them. And then we gave them a sniff. And it got the crowd up. And this is what happened yesterday. The crowd got up, the intensity rose. Everything was at urgency pace by Brighton after that. And that's what we can't cope with. Our heads just go at that point. Once we get rattled, we sort of struggle with it. Sorry, I'm sort of digressing a little bit here.
It's fine.
Yeah, but this is what happened again yesterday. So after you concede one, really what you're looking for is someone to lead the team and say, right, that's it. Don't let them get another one. But unfortunately, we didn't have that about us, and the problems continued after that.
Yeah, and 10 minutes later, we conceded again, 58th minute. It was 2-2. Justin, the question that for me I want answered here is why is, for me, their best player, Mitoma, allowed so much room to run in behind and play that pass, which ultimately creates that goal. So how do you view it from a Spurs point of view defensively to allow Brent that much time on the ball to turn, to pass, to shoot and to score?
I think it was the element of one of the things that I found deeply frustrating under Ange time at the helm at Tottenham, which is plan A works, and if plan A doesn't work, do plan A better. And to me, what you saw wasn't a sensible approach. It wasn't a case of let's just slow this down, let's just take the sting out of the game. If you like the Master of the Dark Arts, there wasn't any of that. It was this whole let's try and just continue playing out. Let's try and, you know, they've scored one, let's go get one and make it 3-1 and things like that. And the problem being was that Brighton were in the ascendancy. You know, they had the crowd on them, that, you know, everything was with them. They believed that they could go and get that goal. So, you know, it was absolute carnage. It really, really was. And the moment it went to 2-1, I could see what was going to happen by a mile off. And, you know, you look at the players that were playing in that position, and when you've got a team like Brighton that is going to put you under the cosh, you need to have players who can deal with that. And those players aren't, some of those players aren't equipped for it. If you look at, in effect, the three he has in the middle of Maddison, Kulusevski and Bentancur, well, two of them go off up the road. Two of them just go off up in the distance. So, of course, the problem being is you're left with Bentancur trying to try and stem this tide. And when you've got players like they have in Minter, Mitoma, you know, players that can feed the likes of Danny Welbeck, you're not going to be surprised when it goes 2-2. I think the bit that surprised me the most is that we decided when we were 3-2 down to bring on Pep Sarr and Yves Bissouma rather than when we were 2-1 up. You know, to me, that two players that were defenders, or not defenders, but were people that could have slowed the game down and people that could have, you know, put us in at least a bit more of a, you know, more manageable situation. I just didn't understand it. So when I realized that he wasn't going to make any changes, he was going to stick with the same philosophy and try and play through, I wasn't surprised we left the gaps, and I wasn't surprised we lost overall, because there was no way that Ange was going to change from what he had set out. The thing that would have annoyed him the most out of all, it wasn't that we crumbled, it was the fact that we took our foot off the gas, the fact that we were arrogant. That's what would have annoyed him, not the fact that, you know, we absolutely got battered in that second half. It's the fact that he will just think, well, plan A didn't work. Well, it doesn't always work. You can't keep doing the same thing and expect the same results if Brighton, which everyone expected them to do, change the formula.
Yes, it's how do we adapt to that? I think it's a valid point and definitely a good argument there to have. You know, how do we adapt when teams kind of figures us out? And I think Wolves and Gary Neal is still in the job by then anyway. You know, he seems to have figured out the way that we play. It's how can we find something to stop that? You know, to limit the ability that they'd be able to find us out. But Jim, I'll come to you next about that second Brighton goal, which obviously was the equaliser. Are you frustrated from a Spurs point of view that we didn't get tighter, we weren't maybe more aggressive and stop that? I think we allowed it to come into our box and we had a problem there.
Yeah, look, the one thing I won't defend Ange for in that game, and I'll defend him for a few things, but I won't defend him for, is the lateness of substitutions. Like, I think that's just something that everyone unanimously says. I don't really understand the reasoning behind it either at the end, of saying it was almost like a way of showing those players on the pitch they can't get bailed out by their mates. But equally, I look at that as you've got players on the bench hungry to justify being a starter, itching to get on that field, who would up the tempo and energy. But I think what makes football so special and unpredictable is, of course, it's the moments of unpredictability in football that we can't control. There's always humans involved. There's always errors involved, and that creates unpredictability. And we love that. We love the chaos. That's why it's the best sport in the world. It's the least predictable. Well, until Man City came along, it was anyway. But it's all about momentum in football, isn't it? It's like a giant pendulum. When your team's swinging one way, you feel absolutely unstoppable. It's like watching a cricketer at the grease when they're on for a ton, and you just know there's nothing in the world that's going to get them out. And I feel that kind of worked against us, because the moment we went 2-0 up was on the 37th minute. I thought, and I was listening to a podcast that talked about like what happens at halftime in football games. Like, when do you make these subs and all that kind of stuff and tactical tweaks? About the 43rd minute, you lock in your halftime plan. About then. So what's happened is, at that point, Brighton have locked in a game plan for how we're going to come back from 2-0. And our players have kind of not really locked anything in. They've gone, well, we're 2-0 up. great, we're cruising. And I think it's very easy to never credit the opposition and always look at your own fragilities. And I think there's actually a mix of the two here, where we were lackadaisical and we have our own bed to lie in with that. But Brighton did come up with it, like Vass said it. They came out with a good game plan. They adjusted things. It was more than simply them upping the tempo. They did change things. They'd watched where our weaknesses were. They got Udogie on a yellow and they just kept on hounding him. They know we don't have a left back on the bench to come on, although we should have brought Spence on, but that's another topic. But it's the biggest challenge I think we have at the moment in that defence that saw us conceding and contribute to all those 3 goals is I think we've got 2 brilliant ball-playing centre-backs, but I don't think we have... Honestly, I wouldn't even put them as in any level of mid-table when it comes to their aerial ability. I can't remember one time Mickey van der Ven or Romero did a thunderous header at a corner to bail us out of a corner or anything. That's just not their game. And all these goals always seem to come up. You can get the ball above shoulder height into Tottenham's box, you've got a chance. And those guys are always caught ball watching it. And I think that's an area of coaching I thought we'd fixed, because we've gone one. We've seen it from 1 set piece all season. So 1 in 6 isn't that bad. That doesn't scream issues for me anymore. It was a big issue last year. But then you see a game like that and you think it's still there, isn't it? That Achilles heel is still kind of lingering. But the final bit I'd just say, to fair play to Brighton, is only 2 teams have managed to get a point against Arsenal this season. And one is Man City at the Etihad and one is Brighton at the Emirates.
Yeah.
So they are not a rubbish team that nicked a win off us, who are typically in the bottom half of the table, and we're absolute mugs for losing it. We're mugs for throwing away that lead, but Brighton are, in my opinion, a top 6 side this season. They're probably going to get 6th. So going away from that to there, we should have got a point as a minimum, but there you go.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a big difference, isn't there, between a small team that grabs a win, and you're always going to have them that do it against bigger teams. But I think Brighton are a good outfit. It's just the fact that we had them, is that we had them pegged against the wall and we let them run away, is the way I kind of look, at it. But nicely summed up, Jim. Kallum, moving on to the next goal, which did again go to Brighton, 66th minute. Welbeck, familiar face, to all the world football, in particular Spurs, always seems to pop up to make it 3-2 Brighton. 3 goals conceded in 18 minutes. I find that quite alarming. But, Kallum, what's more alarming here? The fact that we collapsed in 18 minutes, or the fact that Welbeck, the striker, is unmarked with 2 defenders ball watching, as Jim mentioned earlier?
It'd probably be more concerning about Welbeck. I mean, to be honest, he is literally the walking injury-prone striker, and yet somehow the so-and-so always seems to score against us. So it's one of them where definitely concerning. But if we've got 2 ball-watching centre-backs, well, they're meant to be ball-playing. So, I mean, how the hell can you ball-watch and ball-play? That's my question for them. And it's like Jim said, that literally the errors that they have in them are hands down some of the worst of our more recent centre-backs, to be honest. There's no getting around it, and each goal that was conceded today had the individual errors from ours. Yeah, they was all right from Brighton. Yeah, Welbeck's goal wasn't too bad, but it's all about us being not doing our pressing, not actually marking our man, but instead looking at where the ball is as well. It's one of them where if I had to put my finger on it, I'd say that you'd probably haul off both of them centre-backs and you'd probably put me and Jay in there. We'd probably at least have half a chance and not looking at the ball and all that. I mean, it'd be concerning, but we can try and do it. And maybe all right, Jay, all right. But the other part that you made the point on as well is that collapse within 18 minutes. I don't even think we've scored 3 goals within 18 minutes ourselves this season. So it links in well with what Jim said, that Brighton are a very good team. And it seems like the Amex Stadium is a bogey place for us to go to now. And it seems to be a poison chalice for us. But it just shows how naive we are that we got to that point. Let Welbeck, of all people, who loves a goal against us, he's like Vardy. just always pops up somehow. His record must be about 7 or 8 goals against us in his career as well. And then to allow him that much space and all the time on the ball was just criminal, to be honest, mate. And by that time, you'd have hoped maybe a sub or two, like the guys were saying, maybe a DM might have come on for Bentancur. Maybe Romero would have been hauled, but he never seems to get taken off, even though he's been absolute pants this season. So I think we was just creating our own problems, and rightly so. We got punished for it, to be honest, and we have to just take it on the chin and say, yep, we screwed up, so now they've got to do it.
Yeah, we crumbled. Ange was shell shocked on the touchline, not knowing what to do. It was, wow, what went on there? Jim, I know you have to jump, so thank you very much for joining us this evening. Where can people find you across social media and talk to people about Oh So Spurs?
Yeah, Oh So Spurs is the name. Find us on all the major, Twitter and YouTube. I know there's loads of others now, like Threads and all that, but I'm too tired to keep downloading these apps, even though I hear they're better. So one day I'm going to get on Threads. I think that's the next one I apparently should get on. So Oh So Spurs on Twitter or YouTube. We're mainly on YouTube. We're on Spotify and all that stuff as well. You can find me on there, or Jim Oh So Spurs, my personal one.
Thank you very much, Jim. Have a fantastic evening.
Cheers, all the best.
Up the
Spurs.
See you later. Up the Spurs.
See you later, mate.
Yeah. Really frustrating game for Spurs that I do want to dissect later. But at this moment in time, I was fearing the worst. Yeah, we had capitulated in front of our very eyes, crumble at the Amex. And it's just that we had them, as I said, we had them pinned. We had it done. That atmosphere was dead inside the Amex in that first half. The Brighton fans, you asked them, they had no even thought about them getting back into it. I think Hurstler was thinking, I'll change a few things to nick a goal, maybe see if we can get a point out of this. But it just felt like the players were better not there in the second half. I think that they were, clearly better not there. I think the doggy even helped Brighton with that mistake. So I think that kind of summed up the half for Spurs. Very, very frustrating, full of mistakes, full of errors, lack of reaction, lack of backbone. But Vas, what do you make of that goal from Danny Welbeck? I mean, could you believe what you were seeing? 18 minutes, it'd gone from 2-0 up to 3-0 down, 3-2 down. Sorry.
So there's a couple of things here, and I know Jim mentioned it just before he left about the substitutions, and I guess I probably would have maybe brought on Spence for Udogie, maybe Bissouma for Bentancur. But I think Ange's problem was that bringing on 1 or 2 players, or even 3, I don't know how much that would have changed stuff, because it seems as though everybody's head had gone. Everybody was like not taking any responsibility, not doing the jobs that they were supposed to be doing. And that third goal was a joke, really. I mean, Udogie got beat way too easily in his left back position. The guy makes it to the byline. Bentancur comes across. I think Bentancur, all he has to do is just whack the ball, get it out of play. But instead, he tries to shield it for some reason, ends up falling over. And this guy just flicks the ball up. Maybe it came off Bentancur into the centre 6-yard box. And by that point, Porro and Romero have given up the ghost. They're like, oh, ball's gone out. Don't have to do anything. And they've just left Welbeck there on his own with a free header. It's just shambolic all around. And this is the problem, where it was just indicative of the way that the team as a whole kind of lost its momentum, it lost its mojo, and just didn't know how to get it back. We stopped doing the basic things throughout, and we were rattled by Brighton and their support, which by this point was raucous in the stadium. It was just a mess, to be honest with you. And I don't know how much Ange could have influenced. Maybe he could have done something, I guess, but it was just not ideal. Listen, I suppose you could put a positive spin on it and say, look, it's 1 defeat in 6, which is fair enough. It was just a manner of defeat, because that game was under our control, 2-0 up, and you just shouldn't blow it in 18 minutes in the second half.
Yeah, definitely. You can look at it two ways. I mean, you mentioned it there, one loss, in 6, or you can look at it in a negative way and go, that's 3 losses in 7 Premier League games. And that, that doesn't sound as good. So I think it depends on the type of person, glass half empty, half full kind of person. But I mean, even now I struggle for words to sum it up. But I'm sorry. One thing I think that I have to be clear on is that no matter how you play, you can't pretend that you can't normalize leaving players unmarked in the box. You can be attacking, play out from the back, but you can't live in a world where you go, I'm going to give Brighton goals. And I heard Ange Postecoglou speak, and I'm confident that he was joking, but he was alarming before the game when he was asked about what we're going to do to tighten it up. He was really laid back, that's what we want. We want an open game. But at the same time, we did that 2-0 situation. I said it in a post after the game, and I think it is really important. Nobody's going to remember how Spurs played in that game. Nobody's going to remember all the possession, all these chances, etc., or playing out from the back, whatever it is, one-touch football, taking throws quickly. But we are going to remember the result, and we look back on this, and this is a bad result. It would have been bad at the start of the day, not quite as bad as it feels and is now. But now it looks bad. You can't go, Spurs great first half. Whereas we tightened it up, 1-2-0, been awful. Doesn't matter, we won the game. That's all that matters. You look back on at the end of the season, surely.
Yeah, the thing I'd say, Harry, is that if you look at our games this season, I know we've conceded chances, right? But we haven't conceded, I don't think, as many as people think.
No.
So we went to Newcastle.
It was only... It's no more than 2, was it, before the Brighton game? I don't think in one single game that we've conceded.
Yeah, I don't know the numbers, and I'll be lying if I try to justify that. But I mean, even against Arsenal at home, I know we didn't perform as we would have liked, but we really limited them to anything significant, and they scored from their usual set pieces they seem to do these days. Leicester away, I mean, they had like 2 or 3 chances maybe the whole game. It's just unfortunate we didn't take ours. And you could sort of follow that pattern throughout all our games this season. And whilst people keep serving up these tropes about Spurs being wide open and high lines and everything else, I think we've kind of coped better with it this season. Our problems up until recently have been in the final third, not taking our chances, right? You look at Leicester, you look at Newcastle.
That puts strain, doesn't it, on the defence when you don't take your chances and kill games?
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And then if you concede 1 goal or maybe 2 goals in the game and you're not bagging them at the other end, then you're struggling, aren't you? So, and even from corners, I think we've become better this season. I mean, there are clear signs of progress, but we have to accept we aren't the finished article right now. And it's frustrating because I said this on our podcast yesterday as well. Us Spurs fans, we've been living with this sense of disappointment and frustration for the past, say, 20 years, lack of trophies, etc. But if you look at Ange and you look at the squad, which is practically a new squad bar, maybe Ben Davies and Heung-min Son, they've only lived this for the last not even 18 months. It's been about 15 months for them, right? So they're on their own particular journey as a team, but every time we lose, us Spurs fans feel it worse because we've got 20 years of baggage on us as well. Yeah. So it's a bit of a problematic and a bit of a conundrum. But I think that there is progress, and I guess we have to look at yesterday and say it was a bad 45 minutes. It was a bad 18 minutes, really bad. But as a whole, the season hasn't been as bad as we've made out, perhaps. I'm not sure.
No, maybe not. It's hard to know. It's easy to get caught up in the table and etc. Yeah. But I think that it was certainly better at the end of last season. So no, thank you very much for that. We won't go over that. Kallum, does it feel like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, or do you view it like Vass in terms of maybe it's not quite as bad as we think?
Well, let's put it this way. We're definitely converting within reason more chances this year. We've actually got focal points. So it's a hit and miss because before yesterday, we had like the 2nd or 3rd defence in the league. and I was kind of hopeful for it. But then when we did kind of do it, yeah, it does feel like 2 forward, 3 back, and it's a shame that back 3 weren't playing for us yesterday, because maybe if we had another centre back, maybe it would have made a blinking difference for it. But no, it's a learning curve, and we need to. I mean, what are we, game week 7 next time when we're back?
Yeah.
So it's only 6 games out of 38, and yeah, we're on this winning. We were on a winning roll. They weren't the best opposition. I mean, probably Man United is the only good team out of that, within reason, or at least of traditional. So I'm not all doom and gloom on it, and I know I might seem it, but this is just my resting bitch face and all that for most of the time for it anyway. But there is hope for this season, and we've got a lot of people to sort of come back still. And a thought came to me last night that yesterday was a game screaming out for players like Richarlison, like Son, who you could throw off the bench. So there is at least positives where them two, Odebear, have got to come back as well. Yeah, I'm not down dejected, but it's definitely, we've gone forward a couple of weeks. Now we've gone back to week 2, just say. So now we've got to start the cycle again and get another run going. But yeah,
and listen, it's not to say that yesterday wasn't as frustrating as hell and everybody's pissed off. Everybody should be pissed off, because that's, you shouldn't blow a 2-0 lead in that way. Good teams don't blow 2-0 leads, right? So we all agreed on that. But I guess if you're looking for silver linings, then you can find some in the way that we've been playing lately, and that we've started scoring, and we're integrating Solanke, and Kulusevski's found a new role in the team, which seems to be working well. But we've still got some stuff to iron out. There's no doubt about it, and yesterday proved that.
Yeah, I think it did. Definitely, no. I think. Well, also though, Kallum, is that Brighton did miss players yesterday as well, such as Solly March, Yao Pedro, for example. So I think that both teams are missing a couple of players like that, depth off the bench. So, but I did look at our bench yesterday, and I don't want to say it necessarily looked weak, but I didn't look at it and go, "Wow, this is something we can go, well, here you go, Brighton, deal with this," kind of thing. And it's great to see young players off the bench, and I'm all for that. But we haven't got anything that I always say this. Picture you're in the final. We haven't got anything that dramatically is going to change the game, and that's what we've got to work on. I think some of it is players out, and I think over a few more transfer windows for Ange. But Justin, Jim mentioned it there before he went. To Brighton also deserve credit. I think as a Spurs fan, it's easy to get caught up on our performance. I'm personally really frustrated from this. I think we were bad, and as Vass says, I don't think good teams do blow a 2-0 lead and go and lose the game. Not only draw it, but lose it. But they deserve credit for Brighton, especially Fabian Hertzler at half-time, for changing things, recognising maybe our weaknesses, maybe their weaknesses, and changing things and delivering it as well.
Yes, because obviously they
is it solely inflicted, though? Do you think that Brighton have done well? It's mainly on us.
I mean, look, was anybody else expect if those players, and this is the bit that I found frustrating, if you're telling me that those Tottenham players truly thought they were going to walk out, knock the ball about for 45 minutes, get a goal and go home, then they are as thick as pig, and one of Kallum's words. All right. But the thing is, because Brighton, I've seen Brighton play, and if anybody watched the Chelsea game at Brighton-Chelsea, right, that is what Brighton do. If they're in that position, they're not going to just roll over. They took the game to Chelsea. But the difference was Chelsea adapted. Chelsea knew they were going to be under the cosh. So they just soaked it up. They soaked it up, and bang, they went, right? And that was where the difference is. If you want to be recognised as a top team, you have to understand that teams like Brighton, and I love watching Brighton. I do. They're local to me. So, if it's not Spurs, I'll watch Brighton. So, and I love watching them because the nature of how they play, it's very, very similar sort of to how Tottenham play. You know, it's very on the front foot, you know, gun ho, and we'll deal with the aftermath afterwards. But to me, if you're telling me that neither Ange nor the players thought that Brighton were not going to do that, there's something fundamentally wrong. Whether it be arrogance, because we've heard that James Maddison has come out and said that, you know, we thought it was done and things like that, which really winds me up, because when players think like that, that is such a, you know, single-minded attitude for anybody who has watched the Premier League for any period of time knows a game is only done when the referee blows the final whistle. Okay, so to sit there and think that Brighton were not going to go and attack that game, because you know, Brighton wouldn't have cared less if Tottenham had gone and scored. Well, okay, we were losing anyway, so what difference does it make? What difference does it make losing that game? So yes, Brighton do deserve credit. They played very, very well, but the bit that stuck with me above all of it, and it stuck with me because someone put the stat out last night, Tottenham are the only team in Premier League history to have lost more games, now into double figures, while having a 2-goal lead. So, you know, that is something that is, you know, absolutely shocking. It really, really is. And that is something that I think there needs to be a lot of dissecting, not just by Ange, but by the players and the club from top to bottom. Because clearly, you know, people, I hear it where people say, oh, but, you know, that it was the players on the pitch. Well, hang on a minute. It was Ange that who had that halftime team talk. He had the same amount of time as Hertzler did. He had the same players. So what's changed from there? And then if you go higher than that, well, the club has been the same higher up all the way through the Premier League. So to me, well, not all the way through the Premier League, but from 2000 onwards. So you have to really sit down and work out, where does this mindset come from that you can have a 2-goal lead so many times and throw it away? You know, so yes, Brighton do deserve credit, but I think anybody with an ounce of dignity would have done the same thing, because no one, something you mentioned back earlier, where no one cares about the stats and the possession, things like that. No one cares if you lose 2-0 or 3-0. No one is sitting there and annoyed if you do that, but they are happy if you win 3-2 from losing 2-0. That's what Hertzler did. He saw weaknesses, and we were too ignorant to act upon them until it was too late.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people will share that with you. So no, thank you very much, Justin. You mentioned James Maddison there and after the game, and he was honest. And I think it was wrong, the mindset. I think of him and the players, which I think he was speaking about. But he was good that he spoke after the game and actually put a post out on social media today. I think he's the only player to do so. I found that quite worrying. Yeah, the players are out with posts. I don't want to look into it necessarily too much, but within 10, 15 minutes of the game finished, like Brentford, I think pretty much every single player that stepped on that pitch had posted within half an hour of the game after. You get, Romero together post, don't even got that from Brighton defeats. I find that a little bit worrying, especially if you're a vice captain / captain. I think, you have to come out and communicate with the fans, apologise.
One thing I will say,
going into an international break as well.
You know, and I mean, one thing that I think is going to be a problem is that collective, as in our captaincy group, I think is probably the weakest I've seen in a very, very long time. I don't think any one of those three is an active leader.
Who would you give it to? Who would you give the captain and the vice captain's role to? If you ran across the Cockle?
If I was giving it to anybody that I feel that you could look at and go, yeah, do you know what? There's leadership in those qualities. There's someone who's actually going to get in front of somebody, who's going to get in someone's face and is going to make it awkward. I would probably go with either giving it to Kulusevski or Van der Ven, because to be fair, I think there are two people there that have got sensible heads on their shoulders, but aren't afraid to tell people the way it is, because I think there was no leadership on that pitch at all. And I think, when you're trying to have a captain that's trying to organize you, I don't think it. I don't think he's a suitable option as James Maddison. I don't think Sonny is either. You know, and Romero for me is far too erratic for that role. So I think if it were me, I've seen Kulusevski talk and he speaks very well.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
you know, and I feel that when you look at Van der Ven, there's a very much a calming sort of presence with regards to him, and this is what, when you look at, and it's the one thing that I think Tottenham don't seem to grasp the concept of, is that you can't grow a leader in maybe 1 or 2 years. You know, you need to have a ready-made leader. You look at the teams above us, they've got ready-made leaders in there, you know, in terms of, obviously he's just got out, but Rodri, you know, we all have seen how important someone like he was. Now, people will say, well, you're not going to go by Rodri. Okay, but he didn't cost a fortune. I think if I recall, he was similar money to Solanke or Brennan Johnson. So to me, you know, that is the type of player now that Tottenham need to be looking at, because we've had him in the past. You know, Dembele, Wanyama, people like that, people that could get in someone's face and tell them straight, no, we're not having that. I mean, Ledley King was a perfect example when he was fit, okay, that would turn around, would, you know, make sure that the dressing room and the players on that pitch knew.
Do you not think Romero can do that? I think he has a little bit of that.
I think it's to me, I look at Romero, and there is a player there that needs somebody to guide him. You know, the amount of times you look at some of the mistakes he made, Brighton, Newcastle, things like that. He's had some cracking games, but he's also had games where he's been so erratic, and you're like, and it's all well and good if it is a case of that you're the player doing it, but you are a leader at that point. He is meant to be a leader. He's meant to set an example to the others. Don't sit there and, you know, run all the way out, or you need to make it very clear that you're the leader. You tell the others what to do, and you lead by example. And I just feel for him, he wanders too much, makes those mistakes, which I just feel, you know, you sort of, I couldn't see him getting to the other players. He doesn't look like the type of player, neither does Maddison or Son, that would have got behind those players when he went to 2-1 and gone, right, let's settle this. Let's calm down, right? We're under the cosh here. Let's just take 10 minutes, knock the ball about. If we need to hoof it to Rose, it doesn't matter. Let's just slow this down. Even if we get a clip on the ankles, roll a few times or whatever it may be, right? Because to me, as much as he can have that nasty streak, it doesn't feel like he has it within him to lead others to just like the dark arts, you know, because that is the one thing I would say I would be very critical of the team that we have, is that we're too nice. We're too nice. We play very tippy-tappy football and things like that. And there are times where we just need just to do something a little bit naughty, a little bit roll the roll the ball out or something, just you know, just turn around and just take the sting out of the game, because there was nobody out there on that pitch that was going to do it, and everybody else would have seen that and thought, right, doesn't even matter if you're 2-0 because there's still a chance they're going to bottle it.
The thing is, we need some clever players. I don't think there are captains around anymore like the old Roy Keanes and this and that in hardly any teams, to be perfectly honest. Football's kind of changed a little bit in that regard, but we do need to be cuter. Yeah. Like, for example, that in Brighton's case yesterday, that Veltman that they got at the back. I mean, he committed a number of fouls. I don't even know if he got booked for any of them, but he's doing cute fouls, getting under players' noses. He was lying around on the floor to making out he was injured whenever, you know, just to break up play. And we're not breaking up play. We're too honest. We're too good in that regard. So I agree with that aspect. But as for leaders, I don't think we really have any in our team. I don't even think Van der Ven or Kulusevski would be up to it, if I'm totally honest, Jay.
I mean, to be honest with you, Vaz, I'll be brutally honest, I'm clutching at straws. That is
Yeah.
basically me picking the best out of the bad bunch, because I totally agree. I think if you were to turn around and look at the other clubs and say, would any of them be a captain there? I think the answer would be no. I just don't see it, because as you've rightly said, the in-game management is totally lacking.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting to hear. Well, Ange Postecoglou said after the game that is the worst defeat since he's been here, and that was unacceptable. So, Kallum, do you agree with him? Unacceptable and the worst since he's been at the club?
Oh, I don't think it's been the worst. I think that bloody Newcastle game last year was pretty dire, to be honest. I think that was probably worse. Maybe in the manner that we was in control. And
yeah,
then
he did go on to say,
control.
it's worth saying actually, he went on to go and say it's more about the manner that we gave it away. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, maybe I think he's probably right. It's like we keep saying, it's learning the job, it's learning how to control games, how to play, and it's like the guys have said, there's how to do the dark arts, like Vass said, Veltman with the when Maddison went down looking for a penalty and Veltman just got in his face, and then one tap he's on the floor. It's about how to manage games, and I don't think we have that aspect to it, and definitely Ange alluded to that a little bit in his interviews that he did as well, saying that we don't know how to control games, we don't know how to manage them. Well, maybe he actually needs to look at himself and go, maybe my style needs to adapt, where plan B is controlling the game when we do have it, but then everyone's going to be on his back and then complain, oh, we're now playing Mourinho ball or Conte ball. Oh, we've gone 45 minutes gung-ho, now we've parked the bus and all that. So, I mean, you can't win either way, because there's going to be people who call us happy clappers if we say, oh, yeah, go, keep going, and support Ange full stop. But then there's always going to be the other conservative people who goes, oh, maybe 1 or 2 goals is all right, we'll just shut up shop. So you're never going to please people. And I don't think Ange is a people pleaser. I think he is someone who does take a lot of it personally, but he goes, it's my way or the highway and all that. And I think he's probably gave everyone in the training ground a rollicking today. If they're in or if they're off, then it's different. But I think that there is some naivety, though, to Ange. And I think we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago as well, where he is not adaptable. He is a manager who does wear his heart on his sleeve, but I think that clouds his judgment sometimes, to be honest. So if we can do stuff properly, then it'd be all right. And I mean, one good thing is I did see Richarlison back in training today, because he nearly crashed into my car on the way to work. So it was a fun one, to say the least. Going into the training ground. So my insurance, probably about 10k. His insurance on his, I think it was a Lamborghini or a Bugatti that he was driving. Probably definitely more value than my car.
You should have sued him, Kallum. That would have solved it. I think. I hear this a lot, though, mate. Just to jump in on what you were saying about Ange is naive and he's only got one way of playing and this and that. You know, a lot of the managers, for a long while, Pochettino only had one way of playing, but he had good players. You know, Pep, really, when you look at it, he's only really got one way of playing, but he's got good players. Same with Klopp.
Is he more flexible, though, playing players out of position and changing things depending on the opposition?
Possibly, but I think that comes with the caliber of player that you've got. You know, you can put Grealish out left, or then you can move him inside, or you can maybe. I mean, he can interchange his defenders because he's got so many good ones. He's spent the
Stones is a good example. Stones and Kanji can play midfield anywhere.
Midfield, right? Yeah. So I think when you've got that, I mean, I don't know, maybe move Romero into midfield one day, but I can't see that happening, because Romero isn't as good as Stones or Akanji in his adaptability, maybe. So it does really depend on the circumstance. I mean, I would possibly yesterday, I would have loved to seen Dragusin come on and maybe go 3 at the back for a little while, but you know, that's just not his way. We've got to persevere with this, and this is how it works. And when it works, it's brilliant. Sometimes though, we have shit moments like we've got now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be fair, if you wanted a team of utility players, I mean, our bench was bloody made up of them yesterday. We had so many players who could play in different positions. It's just they're not good enough to play in any of them positions because they're either too young to be relied on to make them changes, or the options we do have are literally no one wanted to buy them in the summer. That's why they're there, sort of thing. So yeah, you are right, Vass, that literally the amount of players that other teams have that can adapt to the manager's plans. I think Ange is definitely still in this rebuild, but how long can we keep saying we're in a rebuild as well? Can we? We've been saying it for the last 10 bloody years and all that since
longer, really.
time.
It's been longer, but it comes back to that point I made earlier: is that Spurs fans have been in a rebuild for 15 years, let's say, but Ange and the players have only been doing it 15 months. It's just different time frames.
Well, if
you go on for the fans,
if you go on 15 years, we're going back to 2008 League Cup, aren't we? Up blinking with Ramos and all that, aren't we? So I mean, we're still rebuilding from his rubbish.
You mentioned Ramos here, and that's good because the last couple of things to wrap up. It's our lowest points tally after 7 games since one day Ramos. That's 16 years ago. Also, we've touched on whether it's the players, it's Ange, it's both, but I'm going to go around the panel and I just want quite a simple answer. I'm going to ask who's to blame for yesterday, and you can say Ange, you can say the players, you can say both, or you can surprise me with the answer, but keep it short and sweet. I'm going to go in no particular order. Actually, I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to go with both. I think the players lacked backbone to get back in the game. I think not marking is on them, not killing the game's on them. Individual error from a doggy, Bentancur, falling over, not getting up quick enough. That's on him. But also, Ange puts the team out, didn't react quick enough. He had the opportunity and Brighton got the first goal. Even when Brighton got the equaliser, we talk about bringing those midfielders on. That's what should have done earlier to regain control of that game. And I know we all think this about Timo Werner, but to take him off, to start him is strange, but also to take him off when we need a goal to get back in the game for me feels even stranger. And he's placed to test that Brighton defence. But Justin, I've waffled for too long. I didn't set a good example there. Who's the defeat on for you yesterday?
It's going to sound strange, but I will try and explain it in a very brief few moments. But I would put it on everybody. I really would.
Of course you would.
Because to me, I think the players, I agree with everything you say about the players and the manager and things like that. But I'm
assuming you're going to put it on the board as well.
Well, it's maybe not so much them, but I just think the club itself, this is something that when you've reached a point when these players have been taken out, we've seen different players and we've seen different managers and we've all seen different combinations, and we've still seen this happen time and time and time again. You then do have to question if one thing, right, and one thing only has been the consistent over the last 24 years, do we then feel that there needs to be an analysing of where this club is going and what ultimately the achievement is? Because the achievement is to play wonderful, free-flowing, attacking football and have amazing, wonderful moments. Bang, got it. We've got it right now. This is it. We don't need to change it. We've got it. If it is to create a culture of trophy and success and bring in the best players and playing the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and this on regular basis, we're nowhere near. And we have not been. We've had moments, but I'm talking about consistent moments. And one thing that really stuck out more than anything else was when a question was asked of the chairman of his three things he's proud of since he's been chairman of the club. And not one of them was the trophy win in 2008. And that sums everything up.
I think most Spurs fans aren't even proud of that trophy win, Jay. Come on. I don't.
It might not be, but it's still a trophy. It's still, to me, a trophy. That is where my view is. It might not be the most exciting, But when you highlight the fact that getting to a final and
but all this has got very little to do with yesterday. If I'm honest, I mean, I don't think the board go down into the change room and tell people not to pick up their men or not to track runners or not to be brave in the header or, it's. Sorry, I might as well have my go, Harry. I think they were both to blame yesterday. The players, yes, and Ange should have reacted at some point, but didn't. I probably slightly more on the players because they just their heads went, and we can't have that. To be honest, sorry, that was my answer.
No, that's fine, and it's established players. I mean, in that situation, I think that's where you do lack a leader, and whatever comes back to win, lose, or draw, when the results don't go our way, the whole thing about leadership does seem to come back to the club. Kallum, how do you feel about yesterday? I never like to pin blame, and I will mention here, credit Brighton, credit Fabian Hertzer. I think they're going to have a good season. I think a lot of it is them and changing things at half time, but a lot of our problems and this loss is self-inflicted, as we've discussed. So who's to blame for you yesterday? Is it a combination of the players and Ange Postecoglou, his lack of in-game management?
I think all four of us have said that we're in agreement that it's probably a mix of both manager and players. And slow to react, not adapting to a game that was going out of control, so he didn't have any overall control on it from that point of view. But players should be receptive to listen, and they weren't. They were responsible. We had two people who are meant to be vice captains in Maddison and Romero, with Vicario backing up that leadership group. None of them took the lead. Romero at fault for goals. Maddison going non-existent in the second half. Vicario playing flappy as usual with some of his decisions. So, Ange not seeing the change. The players not reacting to Brighton coming out strong and quick. So, yeah, short and sweet. Both sides are culpable, and they need to learn from this very bloody quickly, or we're going to be having this discussion very much every week until May.
No, thanks.
That's hard work,
No, I don't want that at all. But that wraps us up on a nice positive note from Kallum. This week's show as we head into the international break. A little bump in the road, perhaps. Do get in touch with your thoughts. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. If you're new, it helps the channel and the podcast grow, helps push out the content. If you're listening on a podcast platform, don't forget to drop us a follow and a 5-star review would be massively appreciated. Thank you to everyone's questions, their contribution, listening live. Also, massive thank you to my panel, Jim, earlier, who's left. You can find him at Jim Oh So Spurs. These Oh So Spurs podcasts, he claims to be a podcast about. It's a really nice guy, bringing positivity, and I like his kind of glass half, full way of looking at it. I need to try and change my mentality, take a leaf out of his book, as I told him earlier. Kallum, thank you very much for coming on. You are the new host of the Premier League show on a Wednesday. I mean, what has the channel come to? We've gone right downhill with your part steering the wheel, if you like, steering the ship. But no, all jokes aside, thank you very much for coming on. Where can people find you? Talk to people about Park Day Podcast, which you co-host.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. And obviously, thanks for the Wednesday show. The only way that you can definitely hit rock bottom is if you put me and Jay on more shows, even on a Wednesday as well. So literally that is scraping the bottom of the pan. But no, so obviously everyone can find me at CallumStubbs97 on X. You can find me, Luke, Dave, Wes and Winnie on a Sunday night for our show, and I think Dave with the Fat Pod lads on Wednesday doing FPL previews, and you can win money as well. I have not been on there yet because I have definitely not done FPL this season because I can't be trusted after last year.
Dave in the FPL league, he's even lower than, he's just above me. I thought I was woeful.
Dave did absolutely Dave did shit yesterday.
Week.
Literally, he's going to get Yeah, I think he's got to post a picture of him crying on Wednesday night. It's brilliant as well. So that's going to be an interesting one. But yeah, thanks for having me on H. And obviously, come check out Wednesday for the Premier League show, guys.
Absolutely, do check it out. It's Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Every Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Either reacting and dissecting the previous set of Premier League games, which we'll be doing in this case, or previewing the next game week. There's always a lot to talk about, even in an international break. Vas, thank you very much for coming on, making your debut to talk about Dr. Tottenham. Let's get it right, from the Dr. Tottenham podcast. So where can people find you?
Yeah, pleasure coming on, Harry. Thanks for having me. They can find us anywhere that they get their podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, just about anywhere you get an audio pod. We're also on YouTube. We broadcast live, usually on a Sunday evening, and we do often take breaks when there's an international break, so we recharge our batteries. Our hosting team is made up of Spurs fans from the UK and also the US. So it's been going for a number of years, but just come and find us, join in the fun, and give us a listen. Appreciate it.
No, thank you very much. In terms of channel content, you can find us. You can find us Premier League show, as I said there, every Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. For example, this week there'll be England match previews, match reactions, because England play 3 times across this international break. But in terms of the Spurs show is concerned, the live show, we'll be back Monday, 7:45 p.m. and joined by wonderful guests as always. We preview West Ham. I nearly forgot there, Justin. Where can people find you across the whole social media?
Well, save the worst till last, so that's fine. Well, to be fair, if you want to have a listening to my ramblings and Harry has scraped through his list of contacts and people can't make it, then he usually will ask me and Kallum to come on just to help make up the numbers. So, but yeah, either here or
no comment. No comment.
Well, to be fair, I think it's fair to say Bass is going to look at this and decide, let me know if those two are on again, and I'll give that one a miss. So, yeah, either here, Twitter. As I said, thank you so much for having us. Pleasure as always.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. I hope that people listening have been a little bit cheered up, because there is negatives. You all need to rant sometimes, get it out of our system. But at the end of the day, we all support one club. There's always going to be bumps in the road, but it's important to back the team. I think even more so in the moments we struggle. So enjoy the international break, a break from Spurs. Time to focus on yourself, whatever it may be, and suffer the pain of England, I'm sure, at some point in the next week or two. But for now, a massive come on you Spurs. Thank you to everyone who listened.
You were working as a manager at Celtic Park when we met you. We picked you out, you shook us up and turned us around. You've turned us into something new. And Postecoglou, you know that we believe it when you say you're gonna change it. And Postecoglou, we're the mighty Tottenham and nobody's gonna stop them. Oh, he looks so fine in blue and lily white. And then he said to me, I'm from a land down under. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh.